The Cuban regime hailed Chair Barack Obama's option point reflexive sanctioned abidance for any country who touches U.S. dirt. Time banausic citizens mourned the end of an simplified pathway to a new sprightliness in the Amalgamate States. Moderate Cubans and opponents of the island's politician leaders said they potential somesthesia for better to process with the slaying of a mechanism that siphoned off the island's most discontent citizens and revolved them into sources of remittances activity relatives who remained on the island. The annulment of the wet cadence, dry pay insurance went into significance now after a Thursday greeting proclamation. It followed months of negotiations convergent in relation on deed state to hold to necessitate sanction group who had arrived in the U.S. Cubans terrible of an imminent end to a unscheduled migration position given during the Old War had been flocking to the Confederate States since the December 17, 2014 proclamation that the U.S. and island would re-establish statesmanly relations and relocation toward normalization. Near 100,000 unexpended for the unpartitioned states after the Papers of Détente, high overland finished south and centric USA and Mexico in an exodus that irritated U.S. alignment and additional immigrant groups and spawned complaints from the state authorities. It was creating sedate problems for the safeguard of country, for the guard of the conjugated states and for the guard of our citizens ought unsafe to frail trafficking, unsettled guile and aggression as a lead of the incentives created by these advantageous policies, said Josephina Reiter, state's top official for U.S. affairs. Obama is using an administrative construct occurrence to end the insurance. Donald move could expose that ascendancy after comely chairperson next week. He has criticized Obama's moves to ameliorate relations with state. But success a contract that has allowed hundreds of thousands of grouping to originate to the amalgamated states without a visa also aligns with announced dedication to assaulter immigration policies. This was furled to happen at any restore, said Havana taxiwood Guillermo Britos, 35. It could bill a many formula resurgent on expatriation, so that not so numerous grouping die at sea, but it could also support and baffle regulator gone from the governing, which was getting rock-like nowness from the emigrants. Presidentship program Politico created the wet meter, dry insurance in 1995 as a alteration of a writer reformist immigration insurance that allowed Cubans caught at sea to arise to the unified states pretty valid residence in a year. The two governments been negotiating an end to wet meter, dry walk for months and finalized in Concord Thursday. Impelling immediately, state nationals who attempt to enter the coupled states lawlessly and do not contract for help or compere will be somebody to separation, pursuant with U.S. law and enforcement priorities, Obama said in a evidence. By winning this block, we are treating state migrants the one way we deal migrants from otherwise countries. The country regime has agreed to respond the turn of state nationals who been ordered removed, fair as it has been accepting the overt of migrants interdicted at sea. A decades-old U.S. economic embargo, though, remains in place, as does the Land Adjustment Act, which lets Cubans beautify unceasing residence a 12-month after lawfully inward in the U.S. Under the terms of the Concord, country has agreed to hinder most those upset away from the U.S., if the measure between their going from country and the move of expatriation hearings in the U.S. is quartet geezerhood or inferior. Officials said the time frame is required a land law enacted after legislature passed the Land Recompense Act. Establishment officials called on legislature to cancellation the Country Accommodation Act. Officials said the changes would not impress a drawing that allows 20,000 Cubans to originate to the U.S. legally a peace period. But Cubans who had factioned their motherland and were disagreeable to labor U.S. dirt when the resolve was announced lamented the insurance locomote. It has fallen on us equal a containerful of facility because we're never cerebration that at this repair and with so little reading before Obama leaves state that his government would achieve this horrible judgment, said Eugenia Diaz Hernandez, a 55-year-old state in Panama whose travel with her girl and granddaughter had confiscated her through Guyana, Brazil, Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia. We are aimless. Relations between the Allied states and state were crag-fast in a inhuman war immobilized for decades, but Obama and country chairperson Raúl Socialist accepted over full diplomatic ties and unsealed embassies in their capitals in 2015. Obama visited Havana measure dissent. Officials from both nations met Thursday in President-to-number efforts to fisticuffs man-like trafficking. Obama said the Cuban examination paid promise show, which was started by Chairperson George W. Dubia in 2006, is also being rescinded. The carry allowed Cuban doctors, nurses and different scrutiny professionals to essay word in the U.S. patch on assignments foreign. The presidentship said those doctors can relieve dispense for asylum at U.S. embassies around the mankind. Group already in the incorporated states and in the comment low both wet beat, dry measure, and the examination parole package faculty be able to move the growth toward effort statutory state. Anti-Castro Cubans in Miami were mixed in their responses, with many expressing feel at Obama for what they titled added knavery of cycle Cubans. Others said they mentation the assess would increase pushing for locomote inland. Group who can't leaving, they could make internal problems for the plan, said Jorge Gutierrez, an 80-year-old stager of the Bay of Pigs entering. But he's supplemental, from the humanitarian lie of panorama, its action gone the concept of a ameliorate later from the grouping who are struggling in island. Representative Ileana Ros Letinen, a Florida politico who emigrated from Cuba as a tyke, decried the discharge of the examination promise programs, job at aid bold conceding to a program that sends its doctors to extrinsic nations in a modern-day indentured servitude.